Mustang action today. Had some parts show up. This is the front nose we're going to be putting on. The factory one is more of a separated up. It's got a lower piece and then these little headlight buckets that are a lot shorter on the original one. And then we got a new hood that extends out further than the original hood. So everything will be a little bit longer out here, which is what the customer wanted. So yeah, I had this one over at my other shop you've seen in the last video. Brought it over here because we got to do some metal work to it. Somebody did something at one point with the antenna hole, and I don't even think it's supposed to have an antenna back here. I think they're supposed to be on the fender. And then just straight up hackery for the mirror. Like they couldn't decide what mirror they wanted to use, so that's kind of a shame. And just a lot of bad body work on this car. So I have a stud puller right here. A lot of people are used to seeing stud guns. This is similar to a stud gun, but what you do is you obviously ground it. It's got a ground cable down there. You ground it to whatever panel you're working on. Not hard to show one-handed, but so you take this thing, you hit this little switch here. Once you hit that, the end of that rod welds itself to the panel, and then you can use this sucker like a slide hammer. So you can pull out the dent, and then when you're done with it, you twist it and it pops off. So a lot better. It's a lot better than you know, the welding a stud on each dent, attaching a slide hammer, yanking on that, and then having to cut off the stud. This way you can just have the whole machine attached, pull it, twist it off, you're done. You don't have a bunch of studs. It's easier to move around, to really work a dent slowly. So what I'm doing here is I welded up a bunch of holes because whoever worked on this car didn't have a stud gun or one of those machines. They just had a screw puller, which if you go to O'Reilly's, I think they even still sell them at O'Reilly's, which should be illegal. Those things should be outlawed, but it's a little slide hammer that has a screw on the end of it, and people will drill a hole, run that screw in there, and then slide hammer it out. Okay, yeah, you might have kind of straightened the dent, but now you got a hole in your door, and you're kind of trading off damage. So they did that a lot, and then they went through and just mudded over the holes, which is just terrible. But so I went through and I welded up all the holes, ground off all the mud. There was a lot of mud on this thing, and a lot of mud in unnecessary places. Like this was full of mud. I mean, at least, you know, I'd say that much mud, but it's smooth. I mean, there's a few little waves here and there, but nothing, it didn't need that much mud. So that's what I'm doing over here. And a little trick to get your body lines good is just go ahead and mud them together. I mean, I just mudded that entire seam. Now, if the fender was in great shape and the door needed the work, I would run some tape on the fender so I didn't get the mud on the fender, and then just spread the mud right along the fender. Use your fender as the guide. But both panels here need some work, so I wasn't worried about that. Then I'll just go through and block sand all this together, and it'll build up this line, and then you just cut this back apart with a cut off or even a hand file. So after a couple seconds with the air file, you can see some metal poking through. Once you hit metal, it's not good, because basically you can't go any further than metal, because you're not going to sand off your metal. So you want to take some sort of a sharper hammer, pick hammer, and give that sucker a couple pecks. Try to knock it down below the surface a little bit. And you don't want to get too carried away with the hammer. You just want to see how the metal reacts and hit it harder if you need to. You don't need to kill it all in one. So I'm going to work on sanding this, and I'll turn the sucker back on when I got this a little more finished out. So I'm going to bring you guys back on this issue I'm having as I'm sanding it. You know, just in case somebody's run into something like this before, show you something that I do to help with it. This spot here just keeps growing. Now, I've done fiberglass, and this is just regular body filler over the top of that. Always fiberglass over your welds. But this area was giving me a fight before, even on the fiberglass. And now it's still causing me issues. What I'm feeling is a lot of waviness through here, but all this feels really high or fat or whatever you want to call it. So something that I do sometimes is I'll take a sharp tool. This is just a scratch awl, but it's got a nice, nice tip on it. I'll give it a couple wraps with that. Now the sharpness is kind of acting like a shrinker. Anyone's ever done body work before, they have shrinking hammers that have a bunch of bumps on the surface, and that's supposed to help bring in the metal to shrink it, make it smaller. This is essentially the same thing. Just fighting with a little fatty here. See if we can get that taken out. And I'll bring you guys back. I'm over here just working. Gotta turn on the camera, but I put another coat of mud on it, the good mud. There's different levels to everything, especially body filler. This stuff sands pretty smooth and easy, and I started cutting this off. Sorry, I didn't record this. What I did was I just took a Sawzall blade on my hand and just kind of gently went down it and carved out that. Now another trick I got is to take a Sawzall blade. I mean, you can do this as an air-powered Sawzall, but you can put it on a normal Sawzall or one of those little small electric ones. Put a piece of sandpaper on it, and lead with the end that does not have the teeth on it. So you just go in there and kind of use it as a power file. You can see the gap looking pretty good. So I'm gonna go through and just smooth that up. I got some low spots, you can see the darker areas, but at this point it all feels relatively good. It's a little low in here, but I think I can work that back in. But I wanted to go ahead and open that up. You don't want to keep that closed until the very final coat, because you're gonna get a little chip out on the edges when you cut that open. So you want to open it up, round it off, because no car's got hard edges like that. Round off the edges, make them look a little more natural, and then go through with your glaze. And I would glaze one side at a time, just your final filler to fill in, your deep scratches and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm gonna work on this edge, put a little glaze on it, and then I'll show you guys the door opening and closing and all that stuff when I get that all done. So I'm just over here sanding away when I hear a siren going off. Got my door shut, so I open up the door. It looks pretty nasty out there. Yeah. Yeah, she's looking pretty nasty. Man. Glad I got most of my stuff inside. The stuff that's outside still needs body work, so we're good there. Let me show you guys some of the other stuff we're working on here. This is the 04 frame swap Lincoln. Got a 97 frame underneath of it. Kind of an odd setup doing that. You gotta retrofit all the brake lines, figure out how to run them on this frame. Fuel lines same way. The radiator support is different. The actual radiator support, just the radiator brackets are different, but the actual radiator support does have 2 holes, so that works on the older style frame. Or the newer style frame is more narrow up here. I mean, the motor obviously mounts about the same. You got to use older style motor mounts, but it's pretty narrow. So then you have to switch over to the older style steering box. So you have to use the 97 steering box instead of the rack and pinion that the 04s have. So that's a little screwy, trying to figure all that out. Waiting on some front suspension parts for this one. I got the rear suspension all done. Customer got a lot of chrome on this thing. Loving those wheels. So, doing a 3-pump, 8 battery setup. Got the rack going. So, Chris, I know we were shooting to have this thing done for the 4th of July. It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. I have not swapped an older frame onto a newer body before. So my guesstimates on time are just that. I mean, they're just guesses. I've swapped, the Malibu we did a frame swap on, but that's pretty simple. It's the same frame, basically, just wrapped. This is a completely different frame. So it's just, you got to customize a lot of stuff. We got Eric Walker's town car over here. This one's got a crazy lockup on it. This is an 04, and they didn't do a frame swap on this one. They built their own spring perches and engine cross member and custom A-arms. So they just modified the stock frame to take hydraulics, which seems to be working fine. You get a little more tuck with your wheels that way, just because the way the frame's set up, that when you run a reverse wheel, it sticks out a little further than the older style frame. But this one's going to be getting a full paint job, color change. As you can see, we're pulling everything off, so nothing's getting left on. All the trim's taken off, bumpers are off. What I'm going to do next, we got this masked up for some body work. We had to take care of a few dings and stuff, but next I'm pulling off all the body panels on this, and I'm going to take it and paint everything that is not unboltable. So I'll paint the quarters, the roof, inside the door jambs. I'm actually going to leave the fenders on, so I just lied to you guys. I am going to leave the fenders on because there's no point. But the doors are coming off, hood's coming off. So fenders, roof, inner fenders, radiator support, all that stuff will get painted. And then I'll come back and paint the hood, trunk, doors, and then put all that back on. And then you gotta paint the lower molding stuff, the door handle pieces. They're partially chrome and painted. Eric, if you do see this video before I talk to you about it, what do you think about doing some gold? I was thinking, man, that would look kind of sweet having the chrome part, maybe gold, but or not. If you see this before I talk to you about it, let me know what you think on that. So yeah, that one's coming along. And we got this guy over here, mean looking sucker. 75 Monty. repaint it. Still need to buff it. But we got some of the trim going back on that thing. This one is juice, 2 pumps, 6 batteries. Yeah. That one's almost done. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it for the night. I still need to put a coat of glaze. I got a little low spot here, but the edges, which is my main goal, those are looking pretty good. Door gaps looking nice, crispy. Body line looking real nice. Yeah, it's raining. It's raining pretty good. So I didn't say this. It should kind of go without saying, but don't just start mudding up your door gaps. I mean, get your doors to fit absolutely the best you can without putting any mud on them first, and then fine tune it with the filler. And I know there's probably going to be some people that don't actually build cars that are going to try to tell me about how much mud I'm using. Well, most of it ends up on the floor. I mean, you can see metal right there. Some metal there. I mean, it's not like the thing is caked in filler. Yeah, there's a lot of layers, but each layer is very thin. I feel like I gotta point that out because every time I show me doing some mud work, there's always somebody in the crowd that just doesn't understand. Because, you know, they think, well, you build a car, should be able to do without mud. Just do metal work. Just do the metal work, and it should be just as good. All cars I build are just metal, pure metal. I'll just do great metal work. Well, then you build some wavy cars, okay? It just, I'm not saying it can't be done, but in my lifetime, if I plan on putting out a few cars a year, I mean, yeah, I'm not doing that. Most customers aren't going to pay for that, and most people don't care. If you got thin layers of filler, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Your car will last a lifetime with body filler in it. It's the people that abuse it and just pack it in. So yeah, this one's coming along. So we're going to be switching this one up, doing gunmetal stripes and a black base instead of the gold stripes. This is a Hertz rental car edition color, but I don't believe it's an authentic Hertz car. I think somebody just painted it to be the Hertz colors, which is cool. I like the gold, but the owner wants a little more Eleanor style color scheme. So, wow, yeah. There goes my tent. My shade spot. That's a bummer. That just happened. That sucker's laying out. Alright, I'm going home, guys. See ya.